real success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the Hitstreak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, joining me in the Hit Lab today is the founder of Because Baseball. This episode is for all the baseball fans out there and anybody else that loves supporting great organizations ran and backed by great people, right? You can find Because Baseball online at becausebaseball.org and on Instagram at becausebaseball. I got the founder himself joining me in the Hit Lab. Help me welcome Kemp Gouldin. Kemp, how are we doing today, baby?
Nick, I'm doing so well. I'm so grateful to be here. It's so great to be back in Nashville. It's a great town, and what a great studio here. I'm loving being here, and I can't wait for this conversation.
That's the first hit of the day, baby, right there. All right, so check it out, Kemp. Like the folks going to hear, there's baseball happening in the Middle East because you brought it there. But like, I got to know, like, what's the mission? Like, why are you doing this stuff? What is Because Baseball?
Well, it's pretty simple, Nick. It's using baseball to bring people together at three levels: the family, community, and cultural level. That's it. And it's about building friendship using the beautiful sport that you and I both know and love, baseball.
You guys are doing baseball in Egypt, all right? So everybody like me is probably like, all right, well, help me connect the dots. Why Egypt?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I had an almost field of dreams experience back in 2015 where I just had this thought drop into my head, whether it's a voice, whether it's a fully formed thought, simple yet very direct, and that was bring baseball to Egypt. And so I was off to the races. Now, when I look back on my life, I can sort of connect dots to see how many things in my life prepared me for that moment. I think I've always wanted to have a coherent life that made sense, that things, seemingly disparate moments come together. And this was that moment. I spent a lot of time mentoring youth growing up. I spent time coaching. I spent time in the Middle East. And then I had also worked for the San Francisco baseball Giants. So you have all these seemingly disparate experiences coming together in this idea to bring baseball really to focusing on the youth of the Middle East and Egypt specifically. And, you know, when you think why Egypt specifically, I mean, I guess if that thought had said bring baseball to Bahrain, maybe I would have started there. But Egypt has the largest population in the region with now 110 million people. 75% of those people are under the age of 25.
Wow.
So we've got a huge youth population.
What caused that? That many people under the age of 25?
It's not unusual, I think, for a lot of countries. In the West, we're sort of used to, a post-agrarian society. And I think in a lot of the world, it's developing, or kids are being born at a higher rate. And so you have a bottom-heavy population, and Egypt is a great example of what a lot of the rest of the world looks like. And we just forget that because often we're very insulated here in the U.S. and we know what we know. And how can you know what you don't unless you go see?
You're right. That's, as we were talking to some friends from Haiti and all that stuff, what they're going through over there, like it's literally the other side of the earth, and it's a totally different world that they do live in. So I think that's why, one of our main purposes today is to educate everybody on what it's like over there, and all those things, because that's how they can help make an impact, right? So you're a 501c3 nonprofit.
That's right.
Awesome. And we know why Egypt, we know why Because Baseball, but check it out. I was checking out your Instagram, and you've got a whole bunch of big leaguers on there that you've done some baseball with in Egypt. Now, is your connection to all those guys through what you did with the Giants?
So that's it's an interesting thread. It began that way. So when I worked for the Giants, I worked for a guy named Bobby Evans.
Okay.
Bobby at that point was the director of minor league administration, and that sort of dates me and him a little bit. He went on to become the general manager of that and was part of the architect group that led to those 3 World Series wins in the early 2010s in 5 years. And Bobby was a mentor to me and has been a longtime friend. And when I had this idea, he, of course, was one of the first calls I made. I said, hey, this is going to sound absolutely crazy, I know, but work with me here, baseball in Egypt. And so that's how it began. And really having a guy like that who's so well respected. I mean, he is one of the gentlemen of the game, a man of just utmost integrity, and having him vouch for it. And he came over with me actually in 2000, I believe it was 18 for the first time. He's since been a second time. But having him be able to go to former players and people within the game and say, hey, I've been there. I've seen it with my eyes. It's a beautiful thing. There's talent. There is joy. And there is a real appetite for this game. And once you have a guy like that vouching for it, it's like a snowball effect. He vouches for it, then the first player comes over. And that was Corey Guerin. And that was part of an event back in 2022. It was Major League Baseball's play ball weekend. And that year they decided to activate a play ball event on each continent. And so we were their Africa representative.
Got it.
And so we had this really 2-night event, because it's a little bit warm in June in Egypt, where we had kids. It's you bring your sunscreen even at night. But we had all these kids, and then we had Bobby came over. We had retired pitcher Corey Guerin, who's actually not far away. He lives in Chattanooga, and he's actually he's the deputy mayor of Hamilton County, which is an interesting factoid for today. And then we had the Dodgers team photographer come. We had a retired minor leaguer who at that point was an assistant coach for a college in California of 1/4 Egyptian origin. So you had this cool Egyptian component that was part of it. He had actually never been there, but he was able to go to the home of his grandfather and coach kids.
That's awesome.
And so that's a really neat thread in that. And so you had all these great volunteers, and they're volunteers. They came over for the weekend and we did this. And so once Corey went, then he shared the story with Asher Wojciechowski. Asher and his wife, Elena, then came in the fall for an entire month to coach.
Wow.
So he retires in June 2022. October 2022, he's on a plane to come to Egypt to volunteer, to teach the game that he loves. And really what we're about at the end of the day is giving these kids joy. What we really emphasize is it's not just what you tell them, it's how you tell them, it's how you relate to them. And that's been a real mantra and something we've focused on. And so, now you've got kids and the beauty of it is you've got kids who are taught by these big leaguers. And I'll get back to the big league trend because it's so awesome, but you have kids from all walks of life that we're bringing together on the field of play. We're painting for them a beautiful new way to live that's outside of sort of the strictures and structures that culture and society has created for them.
Right.
And instead, we offer them this opportunity to just be kids amongst each other. So you have elite kids, you've got middle class, poor, and then you've got orphans, all playing together on the same team. And that's
beautiful.
It'd be hard to find that, I think, almost anywhere in the world. And so that's a really unique aspect to what we do. You have people of different faith backgrounds who are playing together. You have girls playing with boys. Like I said, it's just, and then we have special needs kids. Throw them on the same field, mix it up, just see what happens. And you know what happens? Friendship, taught by American and Egyptian adults. And so we don't sit there and preach to them or lecture them and say, you need to get along with someone who looks different from you. You don't need to tell a kid that.
Right.
If you've got an Egyptian adult and an American adult coaching together, laughing together because they're friends, modeling that, just think about how that changes people's hearts and minds as youth, because suddenly friendship, they are living a friendship. They're not being, it's not something that is this abstract idea.
Right.
They're living into it. And so it's a beautiful thing. And so here we got all these retired players coming who are interacting with these Egyptian coaches who we've been training up and modeling this and living into this great vision. So Asher and Elena came in the fall. Then a guy named Brandon Bance, retired catcher, came in the spring with Haynes, your buddy who you'd mentioned. And then last spring, we did another event with MLB in June, another play ball event. And we had 2 players come, Jarrett Parker, formerly of the Giants and a number of other teams, and a guy named David Hale, who pitched for the Atlanta Braves and others. And, and by the way, rewind back fall of 2022, Giancarlo Stanton just happens to be vacationing in Egypt.
No way.
Yeah. So I get a call from John Morosi of the MLB Network. He said, Kemp, you should probably know this is happening. And it was good he called me because I did not know it was happening at the time. And so Asher reached out to Giancarlo because they had been on the Yankees together. He Instagrammed and said, hey, this is happening. Come coach with us. And sure enough, Giancarlo came out, coached the kids. So here you got one of the biggest names currently playing baseball, teaching with a retired teammate. And so it's just,
wow.
It's organic.
My son's gonna love. So we're huge Yankee fans at the house,
Yeah.
and so he loves Giancarlo and all the Aaron and all those guys. He's gonna freaking flip out when he hears this. Like, you know what I mean? So first of all, Giancarlo, thank you. That's awesome for doing that. You know what I mean? But how cool is that? Just in town, and boom, he takes time to do it from whatever else he had planned. Just goes to show you how great those guys are.
It is, and he had fun doing it. You see, there's some great videos of on his Instagram page and on ours of him whipping the ball back and forth with these girls that really have guns. I mean, they are throwing the ball so hard, and he's having to maneuver the glove to catch it. He's got some fielding skills. He's often praised for his bat, but he showed he had some fielding skills there as well. So
absolutely,
it was just a beautiful thing. So you've got all these players, former and active, who are coming out, giving of their time and themselves just to teach the game they love, to give back to a world that, to get back to a game in a world that has given them so much. So I think that's just a beautiful thing to watch and to be a part of.
So let's peel the onion a little more, right? So let's talk. There's 365 days in a year. What's the programs over there look like, right? So is there, like, as we sit right now, I don't know what time it is over there at the moment off the top of my head, but like, you know, so what are they doing today? Is there anything happening today? Is it seasonal?
Sure. So it's seasonal. So we have fall season, a spring season, then we do this event with MLB. Oh, and by the way, we are the first MLB youth affiliate in the region. So that's pretty exciting.
That's huge, man.
And they've been a great partner to us. And, you know, it's been fun because they get the vision. They love the idea of spreading the game, but it's a good story. And who doesn't want to be a part of a good story?
No doubt.
So when we're not over there, though, one of the other things that we've been very careful to do, one of the things that from the beginning we understood is we need to build long-term capacity. We need to equip the next generation of coaches, and those are going to be Egyptians. So one thing we do with our partner schools and orphanages that we work with, we give them equipment. So every one of our partners gets a bag of equipment, and we work with their coaches. So when we're not there, these coaches are able to continue to teach the game and share it with the kids. And you know, the cool thing is a couple of our schools have fully incorporated baseball into their PE curriculums.
Wow.
So that's thousands of kids in these schools that are learning just from their Egyptian PE teachers. And so
great.
That's fun too.
Absolutely. I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more. Talk to me about the facilities over there, right? So if you're introducing baseball, there's probably not we're really spoiled over here. We got kids playing on multi-million-dollar turf facilities, covered stands, you know what I mean? Like the best of the best. What's the facilities look like over there that you guys are working with? And what did it look like when you first started?
Well, it looks a little different. Let's just
That's what I was kind of figuring, yeah.
So when we first began, there was one remaining baseball field in the country, sort of in a holdover from when expats back in the 90s. There were a lot of American expats who played baseball. I mean, it's really a softball field, but would play on Saturdays, and the weekend in Egypt is Friday, Saturday, and rather than Saturday, Sunday, so they would play. And but what never happened was there was never an outreach to the community, which I get. I mean, it was a piece of home that it was more of a retreat in a way. But over time, as the amount of Americans over there dwindled, it just fell somewhat into disuse, and there just weren't enough people to support that. So those baseball fields, there's still some fields that remain, but there's no full baseball field anymore. But what I knew from the beginning, even though a field existed, even if there were two fields in an entire country of 110 million people, that's insane. That is a potential choke point in terms of building up participation. Because if the message you're sending someone when you're introducing a game to them is that you can only play baseball on a designated baseball field, well, if there's one field, you're out of luck unless you live right close to it. And that's a challenge, right? And so I took a sort of page from, I think of the early 1900s stickball in New York City, right? Where people would go out with just a stick and some sort of makeshift ball and they'd play the game. And so as I would drive around Cairo, I would just, every open land, whether it was just a park, whether it was just a dirt road, I would just, it was almost like watching in my mind's eye these visions come to life of kids playing baseball. And so what I realized very quickly, and what we as an organization have very much emphasized, is that you can play baseball anywhere. So in our school partners, like they might only have a 5-a-side soccer field because land is a premium inside the city of Cairo. You think, I mean, Egypt's a desert. It is.
Right.
But it's a desert that grew up along the Nile. And it was very dependent upon this. Almost you can think of it as the lifeblood of the country. And so you have a lot of people jammed up and down this Nile. So space is a premium. So what we said is, look, we're going to have to play a version of baseball on a smaller side. And I grew up playing wiffle ball in my side yard. So it's sort of taking a page out of that as well. So we use Incrediballs, or we use softer balls versus the hard balls, and then plastic foam bats, or sometimes larger bats, but just allowing them to play on a smaller space to get used to the game and to love it. And then on larger soccer fields, you can, and then we play, there's a rugby field at one of the universities where we have larger games as well. So it's just adapting the game to the space you're given and figuring out, how do you make the game their own? How can you help them make the game their own in the space that they're given? And that's really what it's about. It's about adapting, I think, and figuring out, how you best can deliver a sport to people who've never played.
There's a lot of life lessons in there, and I think the game of baseball is one of the best teachers of life for kids. Period. You know what I mean? Just because the best in the world, he gets out 70% of the time on offense when he's hitting, right? So, and he's the best in the world. You know what I mean? So I think that's, I wouldn't be near have the toughness I have today if it wasn't for the 20 plus years that I played the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Outstanding. So talk to me a little bit about the fall and spring season. What constitutes a season?
So we bring over, it's about a month long, each of them. And we bring over these coaches like Asher and Brandon and Haynes. And they come over and spend a month. So
the coaches spend a month
in Egypt as volunteers. And I think that's what's remarkable, right? All these guys, I mean, they played, Haynes was a minor leaguer, a minor leaguer, which is, I mean, you're right there. You're one of the top 2% of players ever to play the game. Like that's an amazing thing to think about.
That's right.
Maybe even 1%. My math is not great. That's
I like
why
that
I do
number
baseball.
better. I do. I like that number better.
Well, let's go with that then. It's your show. So, so you've got people who are at the top of the game come over and giving back volunteering, and they come over and they go into these schools, work with the PE teachers, work all day long with PE classes cycling in, getting these great touch points, and teaching joy through baseball, really is delivering joy through baseball is what we say. And so they go in and then they go to the orphanages and work with those kids as well. And then we bring all these kids together in the heart of the mission for clinics on Saturdays, and then games where they get to learn together, and learn to play with each other.
Yeah.
And we also teach the parents, because part of it's about, bringing kids together at the family level.
Absolutely.
So, we get these moms and dads out there throwing the ball back and forth with the coaches, so they get a love for it. Because part of, I think, and I mean, I imagine baseball has been really important with you and your son. I bet if I were to ask you, it's been a part of y'all's relationship. I know that was very important with both my mom and my dad throwing in the side yard. Some of the coolest conversations I remember happened under those circumstances.
Absolutely.
So I want to give that gift to the Egyptian people as well, and let the moms and dads throw at their daughters and sons and have those cool conversations around a good old game of catch. And so that's part of what we incorporate into our programs. So
off topic here.
Yeah.
One of the concepts I've got that my buddy, the Nolensville Little League coach, Randy Huth, gave me. He's like, Nick, you have to have a show where you interview people while you play catch with them. He was like, first of all, the people that ain't athletic, it's going to be outstanding material. You know what I mean? Especially when you get the B-roll of Nick chasing the ball down the parking lot, from where I missed it or something, bad throw or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like just catching up with Nick, you know what I mean? And have that. And I was like, what do you think about that? You think that would work? Playing catch with me while I interview folks? What do you think?
I love that idea. I've had one guy reach out to me. He has been trying to play catch on different continents and like make that and he wants to come to Egypt to play catch. I mean, you know, there's something about movement and conversation that works. You know, they always say about kids when they're moving around, they're learning better. They're connecting better. So I don't know why, if you're not playing catch with your interviewees, why the conversation wouldn't even be better and more fun. I mean, I think it'd be, from a visual standpoint, I think it would draw a lot of eyes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it's something that it's kind of on the bucket list of something to tackle in 2024 at some point, even if it's just a limited edition series or something. We bought all the gear, so we got it. We might as well use it, you know? All right, so the got a spring and fall season, then the event with the MLB. So how often are you guys, like, do you guys have offices out there? Where are you located here in the States, by the way? Folks, he flew all the way here to be a part of this.
Technically, I drove,
okay.
Which you know, has its ups and downs. I feel like I spend so much time on planes. I sometimes like getting on the open road and just enjoying the beauty of America's highways.
Yeah, understood.
I'm based out of DC when I'm not overseas.
Okay.
The DC area. And so that makes it easier in many ways to get over to a Cairo and over to Europe, which is often a stopover point on my journeys. But yeah, we're a 501c3 based out of Virginia.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. And let's see. I've got it in my notes here. When did Because Baseball become a thing? When was it founded?
So, you know, it's 2015. I had this idea. We had our first event in 17, but it wasn't until 18 where we became, you know, officially incorporated as a 501c3. And I quit my day job and made this my full-time life's passion. And so it's been really fun. But like anything else that's good and anything else that is right, it's challenging. And I think, you know, I would say this, if I had known how hard it was going to be going forward, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who start something, I mean, you've built up this cool this cool podcast and this cool vision for yourself. I'm sure you would, if you look back in those moments, there were some challenging moments in doing this, and there will continue to be, right? And I think building things are tough.
That's right.
And if I had known how hard it was going to be, I probably would have just said that crazy idea needs to go into the trash heap with all the other crazy ideas I've had.
Right.
But sometimes the naivete starting is helpful to getting something done. And so it's been a challenge. But there's nothing more gratifying than seeing an idea take on flesh and bones. And then seeing those visions that I had in my mind of those kids playing realized, and watching the joy.
Yeah.
The talent, and just the eagerness to engage with each other and with a sport that a lot of people said, no, it's why do we need another sport? We already have soccer. And I said, that's the reason why. Choice is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So hold on a minute. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. This is year 10?
I guess 2000. Well, we're in 2025 will be 10 years since I had the idea.
Okay.
But really, since we've been full up and operating, this would be year 6.
Okay.
So that is, and it's been fun. I mean, look, the first event had 40 kids and their parents.
That's outstanding.
Well, 40, but we've touched in the last school year thousands upon thousands.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, there's people that are going to have events here in Nashville, which is extremely populated and with social media and everything else, and they'll struggle to get 40 people there.
Gotcha.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. And you had enough to field multiple teams with 40 guys.
That's right. Well, we had to start small. It was, for a lot of these kids, it's the first time most of it was the first time they had touched a baseball.
Yeah.
For many, it was the first time they'd even seen a baseball.
Right.
And maybe what they knew was from a YouTube video or two. And so you're starting from scratch.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
it's like teaching T-ball to a 4 or 5-year-old. And some of these kids are like, 14. And so, but like anything else, you have to start somewhere. But again, the love was there. And I do think baseball is such a cool sport. And I know you believe this too, that it's such a cool sport. It didn't surprise me that there was an innate love for it. I mean, you just expose someone to something new and fun, they're kids. They're going to take an interest in it. And their parents, they're smart. they want to take an interest in what their kids are taking an interest in.
Absolutely. There's so much gold on my little cheat sheet here. With all the stuff you guys are doing, I had to put my glasses on so I could see it.
I love it.
So I could see it well. But let me ask you this. So obviously, this is a nonprofit organization. Okay. So, you start that stuff to change things, to serve. What are a lot of our audience loves to help, you know what I mean? So first of all, everybody that wants to help, probably one of the biggest things they could do is just simply donate, right? So, and they can go to becausebaseball.org to do that.
Yes.
Right. What are some other ways that you need people to step up and serve?
I love it. Yeah. So, first of all, like you said, donating is a big deal. It takes to operating capital to operate, obviously. And so you can go to our webpage and there's a donate now section, and that makes it very easy. But we're always looking for good people to get involved with their hands, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people, so many listeners I'm sure you have who love the game of baseball. Probably teaching baseball in Egypt was not on their bingo card when they woke up this morning.
Right.
Heck, maybe it's never been on their bingo card, but here's good news. Now it can be. And so, so we'd love to have people come over. We're always looking for good coaches. You don't have to be a retired major or minor leaguer to come, and to come over and teach and volunteer. I think a cool thing has been also to watch. Asher did this, Haynes did this, Brandon did this. And it was the same for David for the play ball event and Corey for the play ball event. They brought their wives with them.
Okay.
And so to get to serve together,
right,
was a really powerful thing because, again, this is a game that gave so much to these players over the years, and now together. But it also can be something that divides, right? Because you're on the road a lot. So you're having to choose sometimes between maybe your two greatest loves, baseball and your wife.
Right.
Here's a chance, though, to actually engage together in that sport. And so that has been a beautiful thing. So we love for couples to come over. We love for parents to bring their sons or daughters with them to coach. So it's a really cool way to build relationships on this side of the ocean as well. And then equipment, there's always a need for equipment as well. And really just to share the story. I think it's one of these, we're in a world where conflict runs rampant, right? And division sells. And that applies to our world and that applies to our country. I think stories like this, opportunities like this to get involved in something that breaks those divisions, that breaks walls, that builds bridges and builds friendship, bridges of friendship. I just think it's a story that needs to be told. It's one of joy and hope. And it's one, I think, that just is so life-giving to participate in.
Absolutely. The Hit Streak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the HitLab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more. So the folks that might want to donate equipment, getting it there. So there's like a place in the States that it goes to and you guys ship it from there? Do they go ship it direct? And what are some of the items that are most commonly needed?
That's a good question. So one thing we try to emphasize is, we want really new or almost new equipment. And part of the reason for that is we don't want to communicate to the Egyptians that this is secondhand stuff for you. Now, again,
that's great.
I grew up using secondhand stuff, from friends, and I loved it. But so often, I think one of the challenges that happens, and this happens with a lot of places around the world, we'll send, whoever loses the NBA playoffs, that T-shirt suddenly shows up overseas. And look, it's great, but it sends a different kind of message.
Absolutely.
And so one thing is that we're trying to send the message that, this is a gift to you. We love you, and we are trying to share the best that we have with you as we share one of the best games that we have with you. And so new equipment, it's bats, it's gloves is probably, one of those things that's toughest. And yes, if you go on our website and there's ways to just send us or either an instant message on Instagram, or there are fields on the website to contact us. You can send it to a U.S. address, and then we take it over. We've taken some equipment over in the past, and that's been really helpful in order to get it into the hands of these schools and kids. And again, these have all, I mean, the coolest thing I continue to harp on is these are gifts. And we have so many amazing, not only individuals who donate, but we have amazing equipment manufacturer partners. I mean, I could go name them on and on, but every big name you've heard of has sent us equipment for these kids, because again, as I keep returning to, I think this is a story.
Good for those guys.
That resonates,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And I think and people want to be involved in a good story in a world that feels so torn asunder by conflict.
So, folks, we're hanging out with Kemp Gouldin, the founder at Because Baseball. Check him out online at becausebaseball.org and on Instagram at becausebaseball. So doing this, baseball in Egypt, every year you learn, you get more familiar with the turf. They know when you're coming. They're probably expecting you, and excitement's coming, all those things. There's got to be, so I wanted to get all the real information out, because like the best part about baseball is the stories. Yeah. Right? The stories. So we got to have a little story time here, Kemp.
Sure.
All right. But before we truly get into that, I wanted to know, like, when you started this, most people start things with the end in mind. Okay. Yeah. So we know where you're at today. We know where you started. We know where you came from. We know where you're at today. Yeah. What is if you had all the resources that you could possibly want, what would you be building with those resources today?
That's an awesome question, Nick. I'd like every country in the Middle East to be playing baseball. Egypt is the biggest, but it's only the first.
That's what I'm talking about.
And again, not every kid's going to love baseball, but let's let the kids have the chance to decide if they like it. And,
that's right.
And access is the easiest way to do that. And so, so that's the vision, is to have teams in Egypt, teams in Saudi, teams in Bahrain, teams in Lebanon, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing to think about, all of these countries playing together and coming together in that. And I mean, look, from a bigger perspective or a different perspective, I'm excited to see the first players come over from Egypt, from these other countries, and play college ball,
Absolutely.
Play pro ball, minor league, major league, the first all-star from Egypt.
Probably even Little League World Series teams as well, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So,
and there's been teams from Saudi that have participated, but by and large, those teams consist of expats, right?
Right.
I mean, the vision we have is that it's people from these countries playing the game and coming together doing that. So that's the vision, is to have it played all over the region and be a point for bridge building, because a lot of people will look at the Middle East and think of it as very monolithic, but each country, even different regions of countries, have very different feels, very different cultures. And so there's division within countries. I mean, look at our country. There's division here within states and countries.
That's right.
But baseball offers that platform to bring together communities, cultures, and families. And that's at a micro and macro scale. And it's a beautiful thing.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. All right. So we got to have, all right, let's just start out with this. What's been your biggest surprise doing this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you might have multiple ones by this time. You've been doing it so long. When people ask me all the time, who's your favorite guest? Who's this and that? Tell me stories. The stories are endless at this point. I don't have a favorite guest. My wife's been a guest. My son's been a guest. I mean, it's like trying to say, pick your favorite kid. You can't do it. You love them all equally,
right? Just
differently. So what's the thing that, like, a couple things that stands out the most, the biggest surprises?
Well, I think from an organizational standpoint, so when I began this, when I had this idea, I felt like I could tell you exactly how this was going to go.
Okay.
I had an amazing plan on paper, a roadmap that was, Rand McNally worthy of an atlas, road atlas. But, life doesn't usually go as one predicts. And I think that some of the biggest surprises for me have been the need to adjust, to be nimble. And one of the things early on we realized was, we needed to leverage. I don't actually love that word, but we needed to tap into existing distribution channels. And so schools and orphanages made sense in order to quickly get into the hands of as many kids as possible. And I think it both didn't surprise me and surprised me how excited rationally I thought they're going to love it.
Mm-hmm.
But still, you always wonder, there's that question in the back of your mind, is this just a good idea? Do I believe this because it seems like a good idea to me?
Right.
But the reality was these kids loved it. I've been amazed. Our partner schools are just run by amazing people who love their kids and love the opportunity to give their kids something special. And I just think that's really encouraging.
Absolutely.
So that was a good surprise. So I think it's the lesson learned from there is you've got to be nimble when you're starting something. You've got to be ready and expect the unexpected. And when it hits, you have to be prepared to adjust accordingly and cannot get so enamored with your idea that you miss opportunity. And I think another thing was, don't let the imperfect, or don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like sometimes you strive for perfection, and the reality is we live in an imperfect world. And
yeah, we do.
And if you're going to go for perfection, you're going to be, well, and I realized this early on, I was going to be very disappointed very repeatedly. And so adjusting to that and understanding that has been important, starting small, shifting gears, but the result has been gratifying, right? So I couldn't have predicted the path this would take. I tried, failed with the prediction, but it's been remarkable how the results have exceeded expectations.
And I should have asked you this before we get into the stories.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had a career before you started this, right? And you mentioned that this was full time. So first of all, running a nonprofit is a lot like running a business. My dad and I operate one here, but it's different.
Right.
Everything's different, even from the words that you use when it comes to money. You have to use the accurate words, you know what I mean? And you can't own a nonprofit, but
Correct.
you can run it. You know what I mean? Nobody owns a nonprofit. So, running a nonprofit, coming from where you were, talk to me about your background and how you transitioned into that, and you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's an organization, and you run an organization just like you have to run a business, and you have to file things and keep up with money and resources. You got to ship all that stuff over there over and over again. You got to have some process to do that from framework, right? Talk to me about what it's like running an organization like this.
It's a complete learning process, like everything else. I mean, this is the first nonprofit I have run, and a lot of it is learning on the fly, and I think learning that it's okay to make small mistakes, right? You learn from mistakes, like the 300 hitter you said that's a Hall of Famer, right? He makes mistakes 7 out of 10 times at the plate, and yet there he is on the base 3 out of 10, and he's lauded as one of the best. And I think becoming comfortable with making mistakes, becoming comfortable with the idea that you don't always know what you're doing, and seeking out wisdom, seeking out people who've been there before, who can provide that insight and help, and asking. I mean, I think that's the big asking for help. It's easy to be prideful. It's easy to sort of, as an American, I think, to get caught up in rugged individualism of Teddy Roosevelt. But the reality is, I mean, we are creatures in community. We are people who, thrive in relationship, and asking for help is part of relationship, right? And so that's part of when we do ask, in terms of asking for people to be a part of this, we're asking for your help, right? We're asking for donors to help. We're asking for people to get involved. But I also realize we're offering an opportunity to participate in a beautiful story, in a beautiful outcome that, again, I've overused this now. This is number 3, but is not on many people's bingo card. And I think some of the best stories we just don't see coming until they hit us in the face. And once that story gets in your blood, it's hard to get it out. And I can attest, once this story got in my mind, I could not walk away from it. And so that's been a beautiful thing.
There's a proximity lesson. That's something that we talk a lot. We talk about a lot here. The power of proximity, relationships. And something dawned on me the other day, and I challenge anybody and everybody to find me an example of, everybody's big break, or they got lucky, or whatever it was, always came because of a relationship. That luck always came from a relationship. The big break they got, well, somebody saw them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or introduced them to somebody or something like that. And that's probably a lot of your story. A lot, like all those things that have happened to get you where you're at were because you didn't do them alone. You had amazing support, or somebody said, "Hey, I know somebody that they can help with that."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not just what you can do, folks, as far as donating money or resources or even going over there, but who do you know that you can expose this great thing to, that might make just as big of an impact as you could or more, right?
Right. Helping to tell the story. That's a huge part of it. And that's what I'm so grateful today to be here with you, Nick, is that you're helping us to tell the story to people who otherwise might not get to hear it. And that's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I mean, it is all about relationships. That is so true. It's about the way we're relating to these kids. It's about the way our coaches relate to the kids, to their parents. It's about building trust. You know, I mean, I've been going over there, like I said, since 2015. The first few years were just about building relationships, about sitting down with people, sharing the vision, asking what they saw the needs for their kids are.
Right.
And, you know, I think one of the big other lessons is we tell them what we're going to do. Then we do it. Then we remind them and we do it again, right? You keep showing up.
That's right.
And you do it with integrity, and you do it with consistency. And I do think that's the only way to really build relationships. And relationships but it's an ongoing thing, right? Like, you have to continue to build relationships. You're married. I bet if we sat here and I asked you about that relationship, you're always building, you're always pursuing, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's common. It's everyday work, two ways, two directions, right? Trust, loyalty, communication. One way I think is stupid. You know what I mean? It's got to be both ways. And my wife and I understand that our relationship is something we work on every day.
Yeah.
Every day. If not, we're not working on it. It's going stale.
Yeah. And I think one of the coolest things, and sort of here's your first story for story time.
Let's go. I'm ready.
I have a friend over there who is Egyptian, and I'll call him if there's a challenge I have or a thought, and has this uncanny ability to, as you say, connect me with the right person to help solve the problem, or to help, you know, open a door, or to help just encourage me. And so I told him early on, I said, you know, part of the vision here is getting orphanages involved.
Okay.
Because again, this is a whole of society idea. It's about kids being kids together.
The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com. Orphans must, even if they're not actually, they have to feel like the most lonely people on the planet. I couldn't imagine having two kids of my own and a 2-year-old at the time. Right now, like, they're so precious and they're so innocent, and I think outside of, my faith in Jesus, I think outside of Jesus, I think a child is God's greatest gift. You know what I mean? And I'm so glad to hear you guys are working with those orphans, man, because I get choked up thinking about it a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm going to pass it back to you now before I lose it here.
Well, you're not the only person. I'd say every one of our coaches who work with the orphanages we were in, the orphans, get choked up. I mean, it's hard for them to leave that relationship. And those kids are so grateful to have people coming in and playing baseball and teaching them. And
I got to get there, and I can tell you what first place I'm going, the first kids I'm going to, I'm telling you.
Oh, I know, Nick. So I called so he gave me the name of a head of an orphanage, and I had tried before, through different, and I could not find one that either caught the vision or was a good fit. And so I called this guy, and we talked, and I kept calling him. And eventually, maybe it was the persistence, but he relented, and he said, okay, and he, in 2022, a good 4.5-5 years after our first interaction, said, Kemp, when you first called me, I was like, who is this guy? And just leave me alone kind of thing. And I think the reality is, right, a lot of people promise a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of places, orphanages are used, and orphans can be used as tool sounds. But, there's just again, to your point, these kids are so lonely, and so it's from the beginning. What I loved about this particular orphanage is they took on these kids at like 2 and 3, and their vision was to raise them together from birth to adults, and then help them integrate into. So they already had this idea,
stability. Yeah,
and so we were offering something that aligned perfectly with their vision. So anyway, eventually he relented, and that, you know, in the first time we went and worked with those kids, we got 5 minutes out of an hour and a half. 5 minutes of constructive baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But we kept going back and let those kids climb all over us and just play. And, you know, now we're getting 45 minutes out of an hour.
Wow.
And these are some of our best players because they've had people pour into them and they respond so well. So anyway, but he tells me in 2022, he said, you know, when you called me, I was like, what is this? And he said, I will now vouch for you to anyone in this country. And for
That's
our
great.
organization. And I think that's the power of relationship, and that's the power of doing what you say you're going to do and doing it over and over again. And so those are the kind of great stories to watch, you know, and it's everyone benefits because of it, you know, and now I've got a peer who's a friend, right? And he's seeing his kids grow, and he's seeing this opportunity that he never thought these kids that he and his family poured money into for this orphanage would get that opportunity. So it's just, you know, those are the kind of stories. I mean, that's one story of just relationship and all the goodness that came out of that.
Man, you know, up until the age of 7, the kids are what they're exposed to is so important because it's literally programming their mind for the rest of their life. It's the foundation for the rest of their life here on earth. And it's, you know, something I love from my buddy over at Brand Builders, Rory Vaden. He always says, you know, you're most uniquely positioned to help the person that you used to be. You know, which is literally what the people that are going over there and doing this. They're going over in all shapes and sizes and life experiences and helping people that are who they used to be. It's a beautiful thing. But man, like it's such a great responsibility and privilege to work with those young kids that have every reason to grow up and be worthless.
Yeah.
They have every reason to. I can't imagine, because it's impossible to imagine what it would be like to be in that thing. So I think it's just so great, the fact that you guys are able to establish those relationships, because I'm sure the people that run those orphanages they have to protect those kids,
as they should.
There's some nasty people out there.
Yes.
So just that you have to getting through the gatekeepers, just to have those conversations it was 100% persistence.
Yeah. And again, but it was also a friend making a call, right? Someone they trusted. It's like the Bobby Evans calling Corey Guerin then calling Asher, right? I mean, it is a powerful experience, and then trusting someone else to not steer you astray. I mean, it's again, relationship. It's about those relationships. So I think that was a beautiful thing to see. And again, those orphans are playing with elites, middle class. Like, it's not that it's not about identities. It's about just kids being kids together and having that chance to be lifted up together and to learn a game and to learn to care for one another, to build friendships with one another.
So you've had some big leaguers over there, some of the best in the game, best on planet Earth, and there's probably some great stories around that. Because now, true or false, do these kids know who the big leaguers are before they get there? Is it kind of a mix of both? Because if they haven't been exposed to the game too much, that would be like literally like if you didn't know music, you wouldn't know if Elvis was sitting right next to you. You know. So do these kids know who these people are sometimes? I mean, John Carlos Stanton, maybe after he left, they figured out who they are. But yet again, like, you know, we're not going in there emphasizing that. That was the point. Yeah.
Now they do. Now I will say this, you know, these former big leaguers, we do have them put on their uniforms. So it's more, for them, it's more about the uniform and associating that with that highest level than it is the particular person. Because as I said, if they've watched any baseball, it's probably clips on YouTube of, you know, the very dramatic catcher-pitcher interaction when fingers are held up. And I've actually had a number of people tell me that's all they knew about baseball. Maybe they've watched some highlights. But by and large, you know, but there is this authority. There is this, I would say, just gravitas that comes with putting on those uniforms.
Absolutely.
And these are all young guys. And so they still look like they can play. I mean, and if not for some freak arm injuries, a lot of them would still be playing,
Right.
you know? And so I think that's been really neat. And, you know, this summer, Jarrett Parker, who was a young guy who retired very young, still looks like he could play. Within 5 minutes of being out there, he's throwing, before he even start the official sort of program for MLB Play Ball weekend, he's throwing the ball. He just turns to me with this gigantic, childlike grin on his face. He said, "Kemp, this is so cool."
Oh, no doubt. It has to be, right?
It's amazing. And that is a very similar response that we've had from each of those players and their wives that we've brought over. I think it's one of those moments where they're reconnecting with their youth, right? Remembering what it was like to learn the game for the first time and have that childlike joy of the newness of it all. What it was, again, what had become their profession was originally just a love. And I think, to your point you made earlier, the people that we can help the most are the ones that we were most like.
And literally, like, outside of maybe like playing ball in their backyard with their own kids, this is the only time where they can be around the game of baseball and not be the celebrity that they've become and sought after person. They can just be raw and just themselves with the love of the game. Just because, again, the kids don't necessarily know they're hanging out with one of the greatest. They know they're hanging out with one of the greatest guys on earth, but that didn't really mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
They certainly pick up on they're hanging out with one of the greatest guys on earth. There's all of these players and all of their wives who I've mentioned are just outstanding human beings.
All right, let's a couple more stories. I love story time, Kemp. A couple more stories.
So I think another great story. One of our kids has special needs, and I remember during one of the large events where we had kids from all these schools and orphanages together, one of the play ball events, he was there, and he was waiting in line. And it was interesting to watch some of his peers looking at him, and you could just, when kids are trying to, you can see almost the wheels turning, and they're looking at him and they're thinking, and he has Down syndrome, and they're looking at him and thinking something's different about this guy, and I just walked up to him and I said, just talk to him. And this girl turns and said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so." And the kid responds with his name. There's a smile exchange, and that was it. They're just like kids now. And, I think that was one of those beautiful moments of seeing this vision become a reality in terms of building friendships, breaking down barriers that were preconceived, that were there prior to them arriving on the field. And those two kids, and I think all the other kids who watched this and then, just accepted him as one of their own, because he's just another kid. I think they were all changed that day.
Wow.
For the better.
Wow. I'm blown away, man, that like, I know what it takes to start a business. I know what it takes to start this stuff, to leave a world and a career behind, to take, literally a leap of faith.
Yeah.
On something that has never been done before. And the average person, I can imagine you pitching this to the first few people. They were probably like, "Geez, Kemp, I don't know about that. Baseball where? Egypt of all places." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Just congratulations is my point on taking an idea and a dream and making it a reality that not just affects you, but is affecting so many other people around the greatest game on earth. Yeah. Honestly, man, I'm blown away sitting in the room with you talking about it. The more I learn about it, it's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Any other cool stories? Because the stories are my favorite.
Yeah. So we did a coaching exchange back in 2018, brought over one of our coaches, Egyptian coaches, here to the U.S. because, to me, it's about building friendships on both sides of the ocean.
And that's smart too.
So he came over and went to my alma mater, the collegiate school in Richmond, Virginia. And he came over for an entire month. He's a PE teacher, but also one of our coaches, and really just, his name is Waleed. He's just an amazing man. He's a man who has two kids, loves his kids. He's a former decathlete, so he's an athlete. He's one of the strength and conditioning coaches now for the national basketball team of Egypt. So this is a top of the line guy,
real deal.
Who I have a deep relationship with and caught the vision from the beginning. And part of that was because he's at a school with a leader who also catches the vision. And again, these are good people.
Yeah.
These are really good people. And that's what we depend on, is good people partnering with good people. And so he came over, and for a month, he taught PE at the school with the PE classes. He sort of learned under the athletic director what it was like to run a Western athletic department. So he learned administration skills. This is by request from his head of school, who had a vision for both what he could become and the level of giftedness and talent he had. So he learned under that, and then he coached with the varsity baseball team as an assistant. The head varsity coach also happened to have young kids in Little League, so he would coach with him on Saturday. So he helped coach middle school a little bit. So he got to coach at all levels. Seeing this, he also threw out the first pitch at a Richmond Flying Squirrels game. They're formerly the Richmond Braves, Atlanta affiliate. Now they're the San Francisco affiliate. But he threw out a first pitch there, which is pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
And so he left with incredible skill set of coaching. But more importantly, he changed an entire school here in the States. I don't think any kid in that school, no kids on the baseball team, and I would imagine it'd be hard pressed to find any kid who had spent any time in Egypt and built any relationships. Maybe they had gotten to see the pyramids, which, by the way, are incredible. I mean, that's one thing when you come over to coaches, that you can get to see the pyramids, you can get to go on the Nile, anything you've dreamt of in Egypt, you're going to get to do. So, but I digress. He came over, and when we would interview the kids after he left and the coaches, they continuously use words like friendship, love, empathy. One of the coolest things was an anecdote that one of the kids said, when we were first told this was happening, this is a baseball kid, a senior, he said, we thought, what is this about? Like, what are you trying to do to our team? And he said, once while he left, he said, or as he was leaving, he said, I can't imagine baseball without him. This is a guy who obviously he had some training through our work, but who came over and just built relationships and cared for these kids in ways, and they in turn cared for him. The last game I was present that he coached at, after it was over, it was amazing. The whole team circled around him and started sort of jumping and celebrating him. And one by one, they went up and hugged him, every player on that team. I mean, the cameras weren't rolling then. I mean, this was real deal friendship stuff.
Wow.
He changed the community.
Absolutely.
And that's what meeting someone will do. That's what relationship will do. That's what interacting. Rather than looking at someone as the other, you realize they are an other. And that's a powerful lesson for kids on both sides of the ocean, and not only for kids, for the adults who are around them as well.
So Kemp, we're hanging out with Kemp Gouldin, founder of Because Baseball. Check him out online, becausebaseball.org, and on Instagram @becausebaseball. You got your spring season right around the corner, right? As a matter of fact, when does it start?
April. Be over there. Yeah.
April. So this it's right around the corner from when this episode airs, right? So
awesome.
It comes out in April. And what's the biggest need you need for the next season coming up, the spring season?
Yeah, I mean, coaches, I would say, obviously, and then we have the MLB event coming up in June after that. So that'll be opportunities for someone who has a shorter window, a 1 week window. That's what that trip looks like. So I would say competent, excited coaches who really want to invest in people. And then I would say just donations, continue that piece. A 501c3 does need money to run, right?
Absolutely.
We're looking for partners who love the game, who love kids, and want to be a part of a story that is a beautiful one, that is life-changing, and I hope world-changing over time. But it's a long-term play, right? I mean, we are, the world is not getting any bigger, right? We more and more people. It feels smaller and smaller. We're going to have to learn to get along, because I don't think conflict, I don't think division is the answer.
A house divided will not stand, said Abraham Lincoln.
Can't argue with that guy.
That's right. That's right. And obviously for the folks that I would like to consider going over there and volunteering as a coach. Is there any requirements or anything that can help the folks out with? Obviously, they go to becausebaseball.org to apply, right? So, is there anything they need to go? Any information they need to go ahead and be compiling, or anything like that?
Sure. Well, we always will we'll ask for a letter of interest. We like to see a resume, and then we always have character references that we talk to as well. And like any organization that's working with kids, we run background checks because we want to protect everyone, all these kids. I mean, our first and most important focus is on protecting these kids. Well, first and foremost, it's to love these kids. Right. It's to bring them joy. But part of that is to protect them and make sure that we put them in a place to succeed and put our coaches in a place to succeed in this. And, what I can guarantee you is that anyone who goes over there is going to have their life changed. May sound slightly dramatic, but you will not be the same. I mean, you
it's something you'll never forget, no doubt.
And to my earlier point about, I love when families come over together, serving together, having these experiences together it just adds to that richness of life and relationship.
Absolutely.
That I think, so that's why I get excited about families, whether it's husband, wives, full families coming over and getting this experience together. It'll bring you together. Serving together, I think, is one of the greatest ways to build a relationship together.
I can't think of a better way to bring this sucker to a close, Kemp. Brother, thank you so much for, again, congratulations on everything that you guys have done and the lives you've changed. And your future's so bright, you got to wear shades, man. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it is very sunny in Egypt.
That's right. But you guys are doing great work, man. Congratulations. I appreciate you coming on and telling the story and taking the time and everything else. Man, I'm looking forward to keep in touch with you, and all those things, man. It's just, you're doing God's work out there, and congratulations.
Well, Nick, I am so grateful for this chance to tell the story, to get to visit with you. I mean, you're such a positive, uplifting presence. I know your listeners, your viewers are inspired by you. And just, again, to be able to share that with people who are already looking to be inspired, to share the story with them, I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you for your time and for your energy in this.
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial. Folks, once again, we're hanging with Kemp Gouldin, the founder of Because Baseball. Check him out online at becausebaseball.org. It's where you can volunteer, donate, all the things. And on Instagram, and you got to check out their feed, man. It's incredible. Like the feed, the photos, the videos. You really get a chance to see what it's like, right? So check them out on Instagram. Give them the follow at Because Baseball. Once again, Kemp, thanks so much. Founder and president of Because Baseball. Thanks so much for hanging today, brother.
Thank you, Nick.
Folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.